Hello, humans. I am back, and this is going to be part two of the Apollo mission kind of commemoration event that NASA put on about 20 years ago. This is from their YouTube channel. It's one of their oldest videos on the channel. If you're new to the channel, I like space, but I don't know a whole lot about it. And so I am going through NASA's YouTube channel from the oldest videos to the newest videos, trying to learn as much as I can about space. I want to be like involved in space missions in some way. I'm not an engineer or a mathematician. I'm just a dude who likes space, and I think it'd be really cool to be involved in space somehow. But for right now, I'm just trying to learn about it. So this whole channel is just going to be me learning about space. So if you like space, if you have any comments about the video, or you want to call me an idiot for not knowing things, or you want me to look at something specifically, or watch a certain kind of video specifically, go ahead, drop a comment, let me know, and we'll try to get to all those. And then, yeah, other than that, just enjoy the video. We already watched part one of this movie uh, commemoration thing. NASA has it split up into three movies on their YouTube channel, or three videos rather. So they're all about, what do we got here? About 10 minutes each. So we already watched part one, and this is part two. Wow, that is really loud. I am
When
sorry.
we were told that we were going to go to the moon, we were planning and we're training and we're doing everything. Sometimes you get into a project that you really never quite see the end. You're working hard, you forget about the final part, the completion.
Mm.
And that to me was sort of the way I felt. We're going to the moon, we're training this, we're doing that, we're learning something else. And then it was on the day of the launch, before light, it was still dark when the three of us went up to the gantry. Now you have to remember that there's no one else around except a couple of nervous checkout people. The rocket itself is filled with 5.5 million pounds of high explosives. Everyone else was a comfortable
Five and
three
a
and a
half
half miles away.
billion pounds? Oh, he's exaggerating. Sorry. I am an idiot sometimes. I hear things. It takes me a second to realize that 5.5 billion pounds is probably not the geometric weight of the mathematical weight of the thing. Okay, let's continue.
And as my two companions were the first to go into the spacecraft, where the gantry is some 330 feet tall, there's a bridge across there. They walked across it and they went into the spacecraft. I was left alone, fully suited up, and breathing pure oxygen. And I looked at the night and I saw these lights come down, and this was the press corps that was manning the press sites at that particular time. And then I looked down and I saw the ground, and I looked at the press corps and I said, these people are really serious. We're going to go to the moon. And as sunny dawn.
They were saying in part one that they weren't supposed to go to the moon on this flight, and I'm still unclear on whether or not they did go to the moon on this Apollo 8 mission. I think it was Apollo 9 that made it to the moon, with Neil Armstrong being the first guy to walk on the moon. This is not Neil Armstrong. This is Jim Lovell and Bill Anders and third guy that I can't remember the name of. Um, but this is they're talking about that one. So I don't know. It doesn't sound like NASA like planned things out very well in the '60s. It sounds like they had a lot of people ready for a lot of different things, and then they just kind of sent them up to do whatever, and they kind of figured it out as they went. I don't know if that's true at all, but that's kind of the sense I'm getting from this.
On me that this was not another Earth orbital flight. This was the accumulation of the training we had done and the decisions we had made, that unless something in the next couple hours happened, this spacecraft and this rocket were going to take off, and we're headed for the moon.
Nobody had ridden on the Saturn V, and even though there'd been, two unmanned Saturns, apparently they didn't have the accelerometers in the right.
So let me try to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Saturn V is the rocket booster, right? It's not like a specific spacecraft or a specific shuttlecraft or a specific, right? It's just the name of the rocket. Like the SpaceX rockets are called the Dragon? No. Falcon 9. So the Falcon 9 is the specific booster. It's not necessarily the name of the whole assembled thing. So is that the same with the Saturn V, or is that different? Because I know there are different Saturn 4, Saturn 5. Is that the whole rocket altogether, or is that just the booster?
Right place, because they no sooner lit this thing off when I realized that we had missed one major part of the simulation. The sideways vibration with those big, huge 1.5 million pounds thrust each engines,
Wow,
gimbling around, trying to keep this thing straight.
that must be
The center of
terrifying.
gravity was way down here. We were up here like a ladybug on the end of your automobile antenna. So as it moved down here an inch, this thing moved a foot, and I
Anyone younger than me might not get that reference. Old cars have antennas. I know it's stupid that I have to say that, but new cars don't have antennas. They have not had antennas for 15 years, 20 years. So, old cars, to get the radio signal, you had a big, long metal antenna that was on the hood. I can't believe I have to explain this. On the hood of the vehicle, and it would get the radio signal for your radio. Anyways, they were very unstable. They were just like aluminum or something. Something. I think they were aluminum. But anyways,
literally felt like I was being thrashed around like a rat in the jaws of a terrier. And I was convinced that the fins were bouncing up the girders of the spacecraft, of the launch tower. Also, the noise was deafening. There was no way we could communicate.
mm,
Now, Frank, he told me later, was smart enough to take his hand off this launch abort handle because as fighter pilots, it's much better to die than it is to screw up.
wow. I know that's a joke,
And
but that's still pretty
that's why
brutal.
we're all short, you know. And but there was no way if I detected. I was sort of the flight engineer, so if I detected any kind of problem on the instruments, I couldn't see them; they were just kind of going like that.
Wow.
I wouldn't have been able to communicate them to Frank, and if I had seen him and communicated, he wouldn't be able to do anything about it anyway. Well, we seemed like an hour when we cleared.
That's crazy. I didn't even think of the sound, which is also crazy because so a few months ago I saw my first ever rocket launch. It was the coolest thing ever. It was a SpaceX rocket, and I was 13 miles away from the launch site, and it was still like the light of the initial like liftoff. It was at night. The light of the initial impact lit up the whole sky. The whole horizon was lit up, and then the sound, even from my vantage point 13 miles away, was ridiculous. It was like the entire sky turned into a giant subwoofer. It was the coolest thing ever. You could feel it in your chest. I loved it, and that's what got me hooked in wanting to start a channel like this. But anyways, I didn't even think of the sound inside. That's crazy. I wonder what improvements they've made since then. Like, I wonder what they do to mitigate that. Is it just like earmuffs, headphones, whatever, and insulation, or is it all insulation that can block it? Or I wonder how they do that now. We'll have to try to learn about that. That's something I never even considered.
The time have
Go
been
back a
able to
little bit.
communicate them to Frank, and if I had seen him and communicated, he wouldn't be able to do anything about it anyway. Well, we seemed like an hour when we cleared the tower, and the noise started coming down a little bit, and things smoothed out. And I thought, boy, if we missed that in our training, what else have we missed? So
Valid.
it was pretty spectacular. And then as we burned the fuel out of this first stage, it's extremely heavy, probably what, half of the weight of the vehicle. That's when it was loaded. As it burned its fuel down, the whole thing became much less massive. But the thrust was the same. You know, for those who went to high school physics, F equals ma. So as F is the same and m goes down, a goes up. So at cutoff, what do we have? About 4 Gs, something like that, 4.5 Gs. Suddenly, the rocket cut off. Instantaneously, some retro rockets fired. Then the primer cord sheared off the first stage. To me, where my fluid, we were on our backs, so the fluid in my ears were pinned to the back of my head.
Mm.
And suddenly it all sloshed forward.
Ooh.
And I could not resist throwing my hand up in front of my face. Like it felt like I was being catapulted, like one of these Captain of Castile catapults
That sounds
right through
really
the instrument panel.
unpleasant.
Okay, and so I threw my hand up. About the time my hand got up here, the second stage cut in. Whack! So I looked up and had my helmet on, and here was this gash across my helmet. And I
Ouch.
thought, oh gosh, when the big boys see this, it's going to just, justify the rookie position. Well, we made it into orbit, and somewhere along the line, I collected the helmets, and I noticed that the other two guys each had a slash. So my point is, there's no rookies on the first Saturn flight. Everybody's a rookie. The launch was exciting.
It's really interesting to think about. I would not have thought there would have been a gap in between, like, the thrust. I would have thought it would be constant all the way through. And I guess as I'm saying this, I'm realizing maybe that's the goal and that's what it is now. But again, this was the 60s, the very dawn of our space adventures. And I guess, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just half a second that's like able to, like, you get the decel and then you get the accel again. But that's really interesting to think about. I never even thought about that aspect of space flight before.
And then we went onto the coast. We went around once and a half around the Earth, and then was over Hawaii, wasn't it? We got the go for.
That's crazy to just casually say. Yeah, we went around the Earth once or twice, and then we yada yada. That's, I know they're astronauts and that's what they do, but like, that's just a crazy statement. Also, I wonder how long it takes to orbit. I wonder how long it took to orbit in the 60s. I wonder how long it takes to orbit now. I wonder if it's the same. I wonder if it's different. I wonder if there's an optimal time window you shoot for as far as lap around the Earth. That's really interesting to think about.
TLI, which go for translunar injection. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think we would ever get that because I knew darn well that NASA wouldn't commit it. Hawaii, wasn't it?
I want to make sure I know what he's
once and
talking
a half
about.
around the Earth, and then over Hawaii, wasn't it? We got the go for TLI, which go for translunar injection. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think we would ever get that because I knew darn well that NASA wouldn't commit us unless everything was really perfect. But over Hawaii, Mike Collins said, Apollo 8, you go for TLI. We lit the S4B, started out, picked up, 25,000 miles an hour?
35,000 feet a second.
35,000 feet a second, 25,000 miles an hour, and started toward the moon. Now, in order to keep the heat load equal on the spacecraft, if that was the sun, we positioned ourselves perpendicular to the sun and then just rotated all the way to the moon. I think we probably have the record for revolutions.
Yeah.
And it
Barbecue mode.
yeah, we called it barbecue mode.
Barbecue mode.
About,
Like it.
I don't know, about 2 or 3. I might as well get this out of the way right now because it'll come up sooner or later.
And it came up.
I began to feel funny.
I'll tell you, it wasn't a bit funny.
Jim Lovell and I had flown for 2 weeks, and I'd never gotten sick. I'd never been sick in an airplane, but I really wasn't feeling too good. And so I managed to throw up all over him.
Great.
And that caused great consternation back on Earth when Anders wanted to squeal on me. I wouldn't let him. So finally he dumped it on the tape, and they read about it. And then
8 hours later, I covered his tail for 8 hours.
But interestingly enough, all the scientists and Dr. Van Allen was convinced that we got fried going through his ionosphere belt. The doctors were going nuts, and as if they couldn't decide whether or not they were going to abort the mission. They didn't.
That's crazy. I there's so many parts of space travel I never even considered. Like, I guess I just assumed if you're up there and you make it up there that you're just fine. I know G's do some damage, depending, but you can't really mitigate that, right? I guess they could simulate G's, but they couldn't really like simulate the amount of G's, I would guess. And I wonder now, how many G's do you pull as an astronaut lifting off to space? And all these questions, by the way, if you have the answer, drop them down in the comments. I'd love to know. We'll be reading the comments. if you have a video that you think is a good resource for me to learn a lot of these things, point me in that direction. Like I said, this whole channel, I'm just going to be going through NASA's, at least to start, until we start learning some stuff and I have some confidence in topics that I'm researching. We're going to just start with NASA's YouTube channel, and we're just going from oldest to newest. So if you have any other resources that are not from NASA of space things and things that answer the questions I'm asking, I'd love it if you shoot those my way, and we'll take a look at those. Anyways, I didn't even think about the repercussions of the consequences on the human body of space travel. So it's really interesting that they had all this. I know monitored, that makes sense, but it's really interesting that they were considering pulling the plug for that reason. That's very interesting.
Didn't have much to say about it, really.
Frank, I have to tell you this right now, but we were going to the moon regardless of what happened
Exactly.
to you.
One of the important things on the flight plan was when we would lose communication with the Earth. Because as you go around the moon, the communications would be blanked out because it was S-band radar that we were using to communicate. And so that was a very critical point. We had never seen the moon, as John mentioned. And it was perfect darkness, and we were flying backwards, aiming 240,000 miles, aiming for a place 60 miles above the lunar surface. So I was watching that time very, very, very closely, and hoping that we were on track. And just at the minute we were supposed to lose communication, we lost it.
Mm.
And I, boy, that's great. What a wonderful deal. I said, we just lost it right on time. And Andrews says, well, they probably turned the damn radio off. Okay, now I got you to the moon. You guys take over.
Well, as Frank said and as John said, we didn't see the moon because we weren't supposed to look at it because the
weird
sun
camera
was sort
angle.
of right behind it. Afraid we'd hurt our eyes. But when we oriented the spacecraft going backwards along our path, just as we were cutting in front of the moon,
So why do they go backwards? Is there a technical reason? Is it a choice, like they could do it forwards but they'd rather do it backwards? Like, what is the reason, and what does backwards even mean? I'm not sure I'm clear on what part of the spacecraft they're in. I know there's the different stages. I went to the Kennedy Space Center a few months ago and I saw the Saturn V that they have on display, which is epic, by the way. It's so ginormous. But I saw it's got the main stage. I know that, right? The main rocket booster stage, and then the next stage is like the next rocket booster, and then the next stage is where the humans are. But I don't know if I realized that could turn around and still continue in one direction. Like can it be going like this, and then it turns around, now it's going like this? Like, and why would they do that? I don't understand that.
like high schoolers trying to outrace the train in their jalopy and beating it by a yard. We went into the shadow of the moon, where we were both in the shadow of the moon from the sun and the shadow of the moon from Earthshine, and it was dark. I mean, it had been kind of just, the sky was sort of a gray. You couldn't see stars very well, but it wasn't dark coming to the moon. But now it was black. There were stars everywhere. You couldn't tell which ones they were. There were so many.
Wow.
And I remember looking back and seeing all these stars, and suddenly there was this big black hole. And I got to tell you, the hair went up on the back of my neck, because that was the moon.
Oh.
And when we popped out of that shadow and relit our engines, we were in lunar orbit.
That was one of the major decisions we had to make because, if we had any problems at all, we'd circumnavigate the moon and come back again. So one of the decisions, and what we had to do behind the moon with no communication with the Earth, was to, of course, light the engine to slow down. And once we did that, and everything looked perfect, and then when we looked at the computer, it showed that we were in exact orbit. I think at that time.
Wait, okay, so I'm thinking of the stages now. So you've got the main stage, the second stage, the third stage. The third stage still has a little bit of a booster on the back. So would they have to have turned the thing around so that, because they're going in a singular direction, and then when they get close, in order to not bypass the moon, they'd have to turn on the thruster to slow them down to get into the orbit of the moon. Is that what's happening? Let me know if that's what's happening. That's now what I think is happening as to why they had to turn the thing backwards so that they could slow themselves down with the booster, so that they could hop into Moon's orbit and not shoot past the Moon. I guess that makes sense. That's okay. That's cool.
And it was about 60 by 160 miles in a sort of elliptical orbit to begin with. So everything on this particular flight up to now was working perfectly.
All right, so that's a wrap on part two. I don't know how they chose to break this up. I don't know why they chose to break it into 10-minute segments rather than just uploading the whole thing. Again, this was uploaded 17 years ago, so it might have even just been a, a data thing where it's like we can't upload anything longer than 10 minutes a piece. I don't know. I was around when YouTube was coming into its age, but I don't remember any of the technical specifications of anything. So I don't know why they chose to break it up into 10-minute segments. But thank you for watching part two with me. We will watch part three next, and then we will continue down the list of NASA videos on their YouTube channel and just see what there is to explore and see what there is to learn. So if you have any comments, if you want to shoot me in any direction, go ahead, drop a comment. I would appreciate a like and subscribe. Realistically, if most of these videos start going out and over a 6 or 8 month period, none of them gotten a lot of views, I probably would just watch these on my own time and not bother making any reactions. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.